Good afternoon. This meeting is now reconvened at 5:12 p.m. Board members present are Trustee Sung, Trustee Santos, Trustee Villaseca, Trustee Jones, Trustee Dykard, Trustee Adams, and myself, Trustee Davila. I would ask everyone to please silence all cell phones. Please rise for a moment of silent meditation, and please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance and honors to the Texas flag.
Cadet Major Alejandro Morales is a senior at Beller High School and enters his fourth year in the JROTC program. He has distinguished himself throughout his high school years and is ranked in the top quadrant of his class with a 4.22 grade point average. Cadet Morales' total commitment to leadership and academic excellence is evidenced by his selection as the battalion commander for the 2019-2020 school year for Beller High School and his participation in the International Baccalaureate program. Alejandro is a member of the National Honor Society and the JROTC academic team. Upon graduation, he plans to attend the United States Military Academy and major in international relations. His goal is to become an officer in the United States Army and join one of the intelligence agencies as a field agent.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, Cadet Morales. We will now begin with the Superintendent's priority items. Dr. Lathan.
Good evening. Ms. Stevens would come up and present our board monitoring update, Goal Progress Measure 1, Goal 3, and Goal 3 Progress Measures 1 and 2.
Good evening, President Davila, board members, and Superintendent Lathan. For this evening, we're actually doing Constraint 3, Constraint Progress Measures 3.1, 3.2, and 3.3, as we did the goals on agenda review last Thursday. So the constraints that we're doing, specifically Constraint 3, is the gap one, and I just wanted to remind everybody that later in this meeting, you'll be moving on second reading Constraint 3 into Goal 4, but for now this is wrapping up the year with it being as Constraint 3 for 18-19. So Constraint 3 is all about not allowing there to be achievement gaps between student groups, specifically race and ethnicity, economically disadvantaged, students receiving special education services, and English language learners, and we're looking at reading and math. So the Constraint Progress Measure 3.1 is specifically looking at economically disadvantaged and non-economically disadvantaged students, the gaps for reading and math combined. We want to make sure that that decreases down to 14 percentage points by 2020. So the important part of this chart is actually to look at the blue line, because the green line is your non-economically disadvantaged students, the purple line is your economically disadvantaged students, and the blue line is the gap between the two. We want that blue line to be going down. You can see in this case, actually, we were supposed to be down to 15 percentage points, and it actually increased to 22 percentage points, so we did not meet our goal. So the gap increased by 5 percentage points, but what's slightly encouraging is that the performance of all students increased. So neither of the groups decreased, but the gaps between them also did increase. So when you break out the data for subject area, because that was reading and math combined, if we look just at the reading performance and see where the gap is, you can see that blue line did go up. We increased the gap between the groups by 6 percentage points, even though both groups did increase. And then when you look at the math data, you can see that the gap, that blue line, increased to 17 percentage points. The purple line, which is economically disadvantaged student performance, remained flat, while non-economically disadvantaged performance in math increased. And then if you look at the data a little bit deeper for our Achieve 180 campuses, you can see that the gaps also increased from 10 percentage points to 18 percentage points, but the performance of both groups of students did increase as well. When you look at it specifically for reading, you can see the gaps did increase by 9 percentage points, but we did show improvement for economically disadvantaged students by 3 percentage points, going from 46 to 49%. All of this is at the approaches grade level standard.
We've been joined by Trustee Skiller-Jones.
And then when we look at math for the Achieve 180 campuses, the gaps also increased. But again, the performances for both groups increased, but not at the same rate, with non-economically disadvantaged students increasing more. Therefore, the gap increased. So now we'll look at Constraint Progress Measure 3.2. This is looking at the gap between English language learners and non-English learners, again with reading and math combined, wanting to decrease it by 1 percentage point annually down to 19 percentage points in 2020. So looking at that blue line, last year it was at 19 percentage points was the gap. It actually increased up to 21. So that was an increase of 2. We needed it to be down to 20 so that we could get to 19 by 2020, so we did not meet our goal. So it was just a slight bit of an increase in the gap. The performance of the English learners stayed the same at 54% at or above the approaches grade level standard, where the non-Ls increased from 73 to 75. When you break it down by reading, you can see that the gap increased, like we saw before, from 26 to 28 percentage points, even though both groups showed improvements, just not at the same rate. And then when we look at math, again, the gap increased by 1 percentage point. The performance in math, while higher than reading, stayed the same at 65%. And non-Ls increased from 76 to 77%. Now, if we focus on the Achieve 180 campuses for the performance gaps between English learners and non-English learners, the gaps also increased from 15 percentage points to 17. But you can also see both groups showed improvement. The Ls and the non-Ls both showed increases, but just not at the same rate. Therefore, the gap widened. You can see for the reading performance, the same trend is here. The gaps increased, though the performance of both groups also did increase. And you can see the same thing for math. It's particularly important to see that the performance of the Ls at Achieve 180 campuses went from 52% to 56% at the approaches grade level standard, but non-Ls increased from 59 to 64%, so it widened the gap by 1 percentage point. And the third constraint progress measure is looking at the reading and math gap performance between students who are receiving special education services and students who are not receiving special education services. Again, wanting to make sure that gap decreases by 1 percentage point annually down to 42% in 2020. So again, we're looking at that blue line. This time the blue line's in the middle. The performance of students with disabilities is the purple line, and students not receiving special education services, again, is the green line. So we want that blue line to continue to go down to 42%. Last spring it was at 45%. We're continuing at 45%, so we did not meet goal. In fact, we've had the same gap for the last 3 years, 45, 45, and 45. Now, when we look at it specifically for reading, you can see that the gap stayed the same at 21 percentage point, or at 49 Let me do that again. The performance of students with disabilities stayed the same at 21%. The gap decreased from 49 to 47 because the performance of students who are not receiving special ed services actually decreased from 70 to 68. And now for the math performance, you can see the gap stayed the same at 43%. Students with disabilities increased, and so did the performance of students who are not receiving special ed services, both by 1 percentage point. That's why the gap remained flat. And now when we look at Achieve 180 program performance for students who are receiving special education services and those who are not, that blue line, the gap increased from 37 percentage points to 40, though the performance of both groups increased, but just not at the same rate. And when you look at the performance for reading, you see the same thing. The gap increased, although the performance for both groups of students increased. It increased more for the students who were not receiving special education services. And in math, the same trend is true. You have an increase of 2 percentage points for the students with disabilities performing at or above approaches, but students who are not receiving special education services increased by 5 percentage points. Therefore, the gap widened by 3 percentage points. So additionally, the board has asked us, in addition to those 3 groups, to also provide gap performance for race and ethnicity. So in alignment with Constraint 3, we are showing the race and ethnicity gaps. So here is for reading and math for all students, looking at the performance of the gaps between white and African American students. And the blue line, again, is the one we want to pay attention to, and that gap is decreasing. So back in 2017, when we started this, the gap was 31 percentage points. We are now down to a gap of 27 percentage points. We have seen stronger increases for that purple line, the African American student performance in both reading and math, compared to the performance of the white students that has only increased by 1 percentage point. If you look at the performance in reading, you can see that the gap has decreased by 1 percentage point from last year and 3 percentage points from 2017, again showing strong improvements for the performance of African American students in reading compared to the white students who've just increased by 1 percentage point each year. And when you look at math, again, you can see the same thing, where we have the gap is decreasing from 27 to 24, now down to 23%, because the performance of the African American students is increasing at a greater rate than that of the white students. For the Achieve 180, you can see the same thing. The gap is decreasing while the performance of African American students has been increasing dramatically from 41% at or above the approaches grade level standard in 2017 to 51% in 2019. And when we look at it specifically just for reading, you can see the same thing. The gap has decreased as the performance for African American students has increased at a greater rate than the performance for white students. And you see the same trend in math. And then if we shift to the gaps between white and Hispanic students, you can see we're also seeing a closing of the gap. The gap is decreasing from 23% in 2017 down to 20% in 2019, with an increase of performance for the Hispanic students. And when you look at it for reading, you can see the Hispanic student performance of the percent at approaches grade level has increased from 57% in 2017 to 62% in 2019 at a greater rate than the white students. Therefore, the gap is closing. And this is the performance for math. You see it's not quite the same trend that we saw at the others. It's actually the gap has leveled out at 14% because the performance of Hispanic students also leveled out at 73%, same way with the white students. And for Achieve 180, we see the same trends where the gaps are decreasing for the performance between white and Hispanic students based on the large increases that we're seeing for Hispanic students, especially over the last 3 years. That's for reading and math combined. This is the gap closure and the increases in performance for reading. And this is the gap closure, and you can see it's actually down to 6 percentage points. The Hispanic students in math are at 63% at the Achieve 180 campuses, where the white students are at 69. So therefore, there's only a gap of 6 percentage points for the students at the Achieve 180 program. Any questions?
Trustees, Trustee Sung.
Good evening. Thank you again so much for this presentation, Dr. Lathan, Ms. Stevens. I think there's some really good news in here to celebrate. So, when we zoom in on the Achieve 180 program here, we're really seeing progress, right? If not gap closure, then we're seeing progress for groups. I think we really need to celebrate the growth for our African American students and our Hispanic students, especially at our Achieve 180 campuses. So I want to start with that. That's tremendous. And I think it says a lot about the work that the people working on our Achieve 180 campuses are doing and everybody who supports that effort. So thank you. Where the data is less promising, right, and where we didn't meet our goals is where I think driven by our non-Achieve 180 program. Like, that's what I see, is that we're not achieving our goal for the district overall, and that's happening in campuses where we're not investing the extra resources, right, our Achieve 180 program, which goes to the fact that resources matter, right, which we know, and hopefully additional resources that we're sending to our campuses this year will help make a difference there. I'm wondering, so in our budget, one of the things we did was increase the weight for low-income students, the comp ed weight. Then that should impact all of our campuses, right? And I'm wondering, what are some of the ways in which principals are utilizing those dollars? Are they able to replicate some of the successes that we're seeing in our Achieve 180 campuses with those resources?
So schools are in the process now of working on their school improvement plans, and so then we'll be able to review those plans to see how they're utilizing those dollars. And so the plans, as I said, they're kind of in draft mode over for the course of the next month, and then they'll be submitted to the school's office for review and collaboration, and we'll be able, when we bring the district improvement plan, be able to share additional information with you.
Okay. Great. Thank you. Looking forward to seeing that, as I always do each year. So, and then I'm concerned, especially in our non-180 schools, there we actually see some drops, right? And I'm wondering how we're looking at those and addressing those.
Campus by campus, we are looking at their data and looking at, like I said, they're definitely their master schedule, looking at teacher assignments, looking at the intervention schedule, the enrichment schedule, to see what additional resources those schools will need and what additional supports. One of the things that, like I said, we've done over the past several years with our Achieve 180 campuses, and we're expanding that across the areas this year, is definitely our community of practice, where our entire academics and schools office team and all the departments actually go out on non-Achieve 180 campuses. So those campuses that we've seen the drop in the data, and so we will be implementing that practice for the 1920 school year on additional campuses.
Okay, thank you. And then in our Achieve 180 program, we see greater gains. We see gains being made by all students, so that's something to celebrate in general, right? And then we see greater gains for our non-ELs and for our students without disabilities. And so I'm wondering, that to me suggests that there's a way that we want, even in schools that are getting interventions, right, to really look carefully at how particular populations are being supported, right? So what are some of the things we're looking at doing to provide those additional supports, even at our Achieve 180 campuses?
And Ms. White, would you come up and share plans, not only for Achieve 180, but actually district-wide plans to support our EL students?
Good evening. I'm going to ask Trustee Sung to repeat the first part of the question because I heard part of it.
Yes, ma'am. So at our Achieve 180 campus, in general, the trend lines are really positive here, right? So we're seeing growth across student groups. But if I'm reading the data correctly, in both reading and math, in general, right, the trend at our Achieve 180 campuses is that the growth is higher for non-EL students, for students who are not receiving special education services, and for our students who are not economically disadvantaged. And that doesn't come as a surprise to me, right? Like even when you're providing additional resources, right? The students who struggle to take advantage of some of those additional resources and support. So I'm wondering, what are we doing in terms of reviewing our practices to make sure that special populations at our Achieve 180 campuses are, accelerating their growth?
Okay. So across the district, this is what we're doing for all campuses.
Okay.
So this is for everybody. I'm going to start with secondary. It looks a little different than elementary due to the bilingual programs that we see there. At the secondary level, what we see is most people need help. Most of the teachers need help because they're teaching students who speak other languages. So if they don't speak the language or don't have, the goal is to ensure that they have the strategies to support kids who speak other languages, which is where sheltered instruction comes into play. So very strategic about the training that we're bringing in. We're also being responsive to principals saying we need it by content. So we're bringing in content training for sheltered instruction. And so very strategic for all campuses when it comes to you have access to those particular supports. At the at the elementary level, we are going to, we have been addressing the fact that we want to ensure that kids have access to bilingual programs through 5th grade if the data shows that they need support in the native language. The longer you support a student in the native language, the better the transition into the second language. So we are seeing increases in teachers and administrators understanding that kids should have an opportunity to test in Spanish. And where we saw some of the data remain stagnant is 3rd through 5th Spanish. So we want to make sure that the programming for that, which is not sheltered instruction, we don't address the native language support with sheltered instruction. It's a different need. We started with ensuring that they have access to training in the native language, working with curriculum to do that as well. This is how you support students in the native language for reading and math. Because bilingual program, we should offer it for kids who are not yet ready to transition into English. The ESL component of secondary, it acts or works in the same manner as secondary, right? We got to shelter the content. So we never compromise, or we should not be compromising rigor with, we teach language at the same time as we keep the rigor. We scaffold up and we scaffold down when necessary. So there's a lot of things going on for all campuses. Every area has a group of people assigned to them to support the Ls and the needs of those particular campuses. So that's what we're doing for all campuses.
Okay.
I hope I answered your question.
Yes, you did. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Those are all my questions. Thank you.
Any other questions from my colleagues? I know. Do you have a question? Trustee Villaseca, otherwise we're ready to move on, but Trustee Villaseca?
Okay, thank you so much, Madam President. Thank you for the presentation tonight on the gap closure constraint that we have in place for our district. I just have a couple of questions. I know that the last time that we met last week, we were able to see, I don't know if you want to call it data visualization or just a report and layout where the scatter plots were a thing, and was really helpful because we were able to see the top right-hand corner of the schools that are really rocking it out of the park. So I'm wondering, I'm sure you have this somewhere in the background, hanging out somewhere, but which schools are, and how can I would like to celebrate them, what it is that they're doing we know the subgroup of the A180 are doing really well, especially on that progress metric, and the gap closure as well, because this is the gap closure piece. But so that's the first question. I'll stop there.
Okay. So doing gap closure by campus is a little more problematic if we get into groups of campuses where they are more homogeneous. If they serve 100% economically disadvantaged students, I can't show gap closure with them against non-economically disadvantaged students. I could still do it with students with disabilities. I can still probably do it with English learners, as long as there's enough students in each group. I can do it for the district. I can do it for Achieve 180 because it's a group of schools, but when we start getting into individual campuses, sometimes it's a little bit harder if you have a very homogeneous population, because I just don't have the counts of students in both groups to do it. We also usually, up to this point, have not shown scatter plots on the constraints. We've done it on the goals. This is now moving to a goal, so we can start talking about that a little bit more deeply when it becomes an actual goal. But again, you know, if that's a request and that's a formal board referral, I can provide you the information only for campuses that have enough students to do gap analysis on. Those that are more homogeneous populations, they wouldn't be in the reports.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Another thing that I had a question about was, if we can't do the analysis in that manner, is there a way to look at it from a grade by grade, each tested grade level? And English 1 and 2 for EOCs, and because I know it's all lumped together, and that's how we have the goal written like that, and it's an aggregate form. But if we're not able to do the comparison and the way that I mentioned, if there's a way just to get some more, and not in the scatter plot necessarily, but the distilled information as far as grade level performance.
If that's a referral, we can do that. It's
Okay.
possible.
Okay, good. I think that's all. I'll see if I come back with the second round. Thank you so much.
Trustee Dygard?
Thank you. I had the question about the plotter charts too. I love the plotter charts. But I hear your point that it's more challenging, especially with this constraint. But maybe, how will that work when it's a goal?
It'll
Is it
still
going to
be
be the same challenge?
It's the same challenge. The challenge doesn't change. We just didn't do it because it was a constraint.
Yeah.
And if we go to do it when it's a goal, I'm still going to have the same challenge. I'm not going to be able to show all campuses.
Okay. The reason I'm interested in seeing it, I think, is to know, like, I'm always interested in who the outliers are. You know, so in that school where they are closing it, you know, when they have enough population and they are closing it, you know, what are we learning from those campuses to apply to other situations, other schools? So as I was looking at this, you know, I was thinking about the correlating goal that we have of our students who are more than a year behind making a minimum of 1 year's growth. And I don't have that in front of me, but how is this correlating with that? I mean, because the way for us to close the achievement gap, you know, you don't want to do it by stagnating, you know, any group of kids or bringing down any group of kids. You want to make sure all ships are rising, but you need the kids who are behind to be rising at a faster rate. So do you have, I mean, you may not have it in front of you. Does anybody recall like how this might correlate to our progress on that goal?
No, I don't think I actually, do I have can you get my binder? It's in my binder. Thanks. Oops. So that was goal 3, and we presented that on Thursday, and if I recall, we didn't make progress on goal 3. We actually, it's coming. There we go. So with goal 3, we also didn't make progress with that as well. So with goal 3, we had moved, we had shown the previous year, 64% of our students who had previously failed had shown progress, but this year, 61% of our students who had previously failed had shown progress. So we're still making progress with more than half of the students that had failed, but obviously we want all of the kids who have previously failed to have shown progress.
We're not making it.
And we didn't meet our goal. And we had more of a struggle with math than we did with reading. And then we also saw that students with disabilities also did not show the amount of progress that we were wanting them. So I think this aligns with the information that we're talking about here.
So this doesn't become surprising, right?
It's not surprising.
If the kids who are behind are not making a minimum, or really more than a year's growth, we're not going to close the achievement gap. So if we don't accomplish goal 1, we're always going to be in violation of constraint.
And that's actually goal 3.
Thank you. That's what I meant. Of goal 3, this is always going to reflect an increase in an achievement gap, unless the top is coming down.
Well, it depends on who the students are who have previously failed.
Okay.
But if the students who have previously failed end up being the students that are struggling learners, such as students with disabilities or students who are English learners, and we're not getting them to where they need to be, then we won't be able to close the gap. Yeah. But if we continue to show progress with them, then we can continue to move towards closing the gap. We did show progress with those students, but just not to the point where we would have met our goal.
Yeah. And also there was an email sent to us, I don't know if it was earlier this week or last week, about we had about 20 to a little less than 20% of our 5th graders and our 8th graders who still hadn't passed the STAR on their 3rd administration of the test.
Right.
Are we seeing, has that gone up or down from the previous year? Because that would lead to this achievement gap as well.
So I can't really compare it to last year because we had the hurricane and there was a waiver from the state for that 3rd administration.
Oh,
so
right.
I can only show the 3rd administration this year, but I can't compare it to how they did on the 3rd administration last year because we didn't do one. And so it's hard to tell you that, but I will say that those rates are not inconsistent with what we have had in the past. Okay. So previously, when we have had 3 administrations, we're running about at the same rates that we have been. I just can't compare it specifically to last year's data.
Thank you. And Dr. Lathan, you were in response to Trustee Sung's question, the going school by school to see where the challenges are and what supports they need. To close the achievement gaps on their campuses. Can you give a couple of examples where the administration or the school-based staff has made that assessment and what changes they've made? Because I know it's not one size fits all that in the way you're describing it. So I'm just curious if there's an example of what that process has looked like.
So as we look at data, like I said, decisions are made around intervention groups. So once the data, and we do this, that's just a part of the normal process of the day-to-day work, not only at the school level, but also in the academics world. Is once we have that data, we look if we need to regroup students based on the various groups, if we need to make teaching assignment changes, if we need to look at those resources. If you recall last year, we did have hold some community of practice walkthroughs on some of our non-Achieve 180 campuses. It was because we had looked at that data and we had some concerns as we were looking at projections that certain subgroups were not meeting their projected goals. And so we went in and conducted the community of practice, and we made recommendations to the school team of some things that they could put in place. And as a result of that, we saw, and we saw some gains when we looked at the first administration or the second administration of those STAR results for those 3rd and 5th grade students.
So then that's helped you identify what changes have helped and where maybe those changes hadn't, so then they could redirect to a different strategy?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for my colleagues? All right, Trustee Sung.
Just a comment. I remember when we set this constraint, we went back and forth on what the closure rate should be, right? And a 1% closure rate, felt like not ambitious to us. We're like, how many years, right, is it going to take for us to close these gaps? But I remember us noting, right, that we're, and I still feel that way, but I want to note that, us bringing this to public attention every month, not every month, but regularly, consistently across the year, and saying we're going to keep narrowing these gaps, right, despite societal forces, despite challenges that families may face outside the school, and we're going to face those squarely and really commit ourselves to keep closing these gaps. I think that we need to pat ourselves on the back for continuing to have this commitment. And I'm looking forward to us learning from what we've done this year and hitting this target next year. So thank you, everybody.
Trustee Sung. Give a second.
Thank you again. Okay, the only other question that I have is around the school improvement plan. So the process that schools go for planning for the school year, setting the goals, putting a plan in place for how they're going to attack the goals. I know it seems to usually be written out and pretty, it's more, I guess you could say qualitative. I'm not sure if how the systems we have in place are able to capture which one of those goals or the amount of goals that are actually focused on progress versus the goals that are focused on growth. And if that's captured, if there's a way to be able to sort of overlay that or link that up with how these trends are going as well. So, I know it's like the plan is usually really well written out and things of that nature, but I'm wondering if there's a way then after you know what the school goals are, help me, enlighten me if that's something that's gathered or that's kept or tracked at all right now.
So I would have to go back and look at that. I'm not sure, and so we'll review your statement, and then we will go back and talk with the team about that. I just can't answer that on the spot.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, no further questions. Do I have a motion to approve the board Monday update?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
We're ready to vote. Motion carries 7-4-0 against, no abstention. We are now ready for hearing of the community. We have some students that we will be hearing. We have 3 students who are registered to speak, and so we will be listening to them, and then we will be considering the rest of the agenda items. Please note that we are conducting our hearing citizens of the community in 2 parts in order to prioritize our students who have signed up to speak. The guidelines remain the same. Only those individuals who registered by 9:30 today may speak this evening. Also, copies of handout materials must have been provided to the board by 9:30 a.m. today. We have 3 student speakers registered to speak this evening. The total time allotment for the speakers should not exceed 30 minutes. Speakers during the hearing committee shall be limited to 2 minutes each. I'd like to remind speakers that when addressing the board, please stay on topic and refrain from naming individuals, especially students, as they are protected under the Family Education Rights and Privacy Act. Please understand that this is a public forum, does not allow for dialogues with board members. The board cannot deliberate or respond directly to a speaker in this format. So that each person who has signed up to speak can be heard by the board, we ask that there be no disruption of the meeting by members of the audience, no abusive statements, no actions, no threats, no confrontations, no audible expressions by the audience of approval or disapproval. Should a speaker drift from the state subject or become disruptive or abusive, the speaker shall be given 1 warning. If a second warning is required, then the speaker shall be forfeit the remaining of time allotment for the current meeting, or any allotment for any meeting within the next 30 days may be removed from the meeting. We ask that you please speak directly into the microphone. The clock on the wall on the right and the podium will count down your time and will signal when your time is up. I ask that you please respect our procedures and the other speakers, and in your remarks, prompt me when your time has expired. We have 3 speakers, and I do believe they're sitting in the front already. Shirley Sue, and please, when you come to the podium, correct me if the pronunciation is wrong. And then we have Annie Sue? Okay, Sue. And then Joshua. No. All right, so we're going to start with Shirley.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Shirley Zhu. I'm a rising junior at Blair High School. I'm also the co-president of the Blair Future Problem Solvers Club. And so today I'm introducing the Future Problem Solving International Program with you guys. This is also known as the FPS program. This is an extracurricular program that is dedicated to teaching students creative and critical thinking skills as well as teamwork and communication strategies. So this foundation of the program is a 6-step model. The 6 steps are in line with the national curriculum standards. And the steps are first identifying challenges, selecting an underlying problem, producing solution ideas, generating criteria, applying criteria, and producing an action plan. And so FPS provides the tools for students to master these 6 steps. And students refine their skills by applying it to multiple topics, including STEM and business and global issues. The FPS program is also centered around a competition that has 4 competitive components. The first is global issues problem solving, where students are presented with a future scene and they use a 6-step process to create a solution. There's also community problem solving, where students use the 6-step process in creating and implementing an action plan that they use in real life. There is scenario performance, where students create and perform an oral story that's related to one of the topics of the year. And there's also scenario writing, where students create a piece of fiction that is related to one of the topics of the year and is set in the future. And so the Blair FPS Club was founded in March of 2018. We have already expanded, and one of our greatest achievements was this year at the international conference. We received first place in the human services category of community problem solving.
Annie, Sue, and followed by Joshua.
Hello, everyone. My name is Annie Zhu, and I'm the other co-president of Blair FPS. And as Shirley mentioned, all of the club members gained a lot from this experience. And moving forward, we hope to expand this program. That way, other HISD students have the same opportunities that we've had with future problem solving. So with this goal in mind of expanding this program, this summer we launched a project called Readiness Across Mathematics with the acronym RAM. So I'm just going to refer to it as Project RAM. And this pilot camp was hosted for a week, and we focused on teaching mathematical skills and fostering a love for learning in middle school students who are a little bit more disadvantaged. And ultimately, since we hope to expand extracurricular activities so it's more accessible to all students, we want to expand the RAM program in 2 ways. So first, we want to reach more students, and we've started doing this by creating a collaboration with the Geo Neighborhood Grant, which will allow us to reach students who live in the Old Spanish Trail and South Union areas of Houston. And secondly, we hope to expand to extend beyond just mathematics, but problem solving in general. And so we really want to create a call to action too, because as the HSD board, we hope that you guys can encourage schools, principals, and teachers to join FPS and to incorporate that program into the schools. And we're more than happy to help other schools enter the FPS world. But additionally, the Texas State Director, Sid Rogers, is very willing to incorporate HSD into FPS as well. So workshops and meetings can be arranged, and we can definitely help all schools who are interested in signing up and creating teams for FPS. Also, if it is possible, extra funding would be deeply appreciated, because students, it's very expensive for travel and also the fees of just applying. But in general, we really hope to provide this opportunity to all students. Thank you.
Thank you. Is Joshua present?
No.
Okay.
Joshua is actually an alumni. He's not a student.
Okay. Okay. We will then move on. Thank you so much, ladies, for presenting. We do have our superintendent who's here present, and several of her team that are here present that are leaders of the district that we hope will share this. Is there? Are we calling somebody? Oh, okay. I'm sorry. So thank you. We're now ready to move on to the superintendent's agenda item. For the record, let it be reflected that agenda item K3 and the attachment to agenda item B2 were added after the agenda was printed. Board policy requires trustees to excuse themselves and abstain from all discussions and votes pertaining to contracts that might involve conflict of interest. As defined on board policy BBFA local, a conflict of interest is a circumstance that could cast doubt on a trustee's ability to act with total objectivity with regard to the district's interests. Starting with trustees to my far right and continuing left, would each trustee state any agenda items that he or she wants held for separate discussion and state any agenda item for which the trustee will abstain and the basis of conflict of interest requirements which shall also be held for separate discussion. Trustee Skeeler-Jones.
Abstentions on D1 and I1.
D1 and I1?
And pull K3.
Okay. K3? Trustee Ansung?
No abstentions, pull B2.
B2? Trustee Santos?
No abstentions in I2, please.
I2?
I'm sorry, I1?
Okay, I1 then. I have no abstentions, no conflicts. Trustee Villaseca?
No abstentions, and I would like B2, K2, and K3.
Trustee Jones?
No abstentions and nothing.
Trustee Dygard?
No abstentions, and I'd like to pull for discussion B2 and K1.
Trustee Adams?
No abstentions and no items to be pulled.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll go ahead and start with, colleagues, as a reminder, I'm asking that each trustee limit your time, including questions or responses, to a total of 3 minutes for all items combined. The board services staff will track your time, starting with the trustees. We'll track your time. I've already asked you which items you want to pull. All right, we're going to start with B2, and I have several trustees who have pulled that item. We'll start with Trustee Sung.
Thank you, Madam President. So with regards to B2, I'm very excited to note that we have a coach, a couple of coaches working with us now from Next Board on this. And one thing I'm wondering, since Next Board does help us to review these, is whether we might postpone this item so that our coaches could have the opportunity to review this, work with us to set next quarter targets, just make this a more thoughtful consideration of this item. So I move to postpone this item to our next regularly scheduled board meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's been a motion to postpone item B2 to our next regularly scheduled board meeting. Is that correct, Trustee?
Yes.
And there's been a second. Discussion. Trustee Dygard,
So I appreciate, the intention, and I brought this up at agenda review. We don't set goals with this. We just sort of, hope that we get more points every quarter. I'd like us to have a conversation, however, about holding ourselves accountable to where we actually are at, as we move forward and work with the coach and set goals. And so I would still like to see us vote and agree on where we are currently at before we start this work with the board coach. For example, we're giving ourselves 12 points for Vision 1 and having goals, and I agree, we have these goals, they're SMART goals, and they fit all of that. But what I'm struggling around that is I've heard at this table many times of people not agreeing with the goals, and so it makes me question. I just think that's a conversation that we need to have. Do we give ourselves points for something that we don't agree are actually our goals? So I welcome to hear what my colleagues have to speak to on this item as well. Thank you.
Trustee Skeller-Jones.
So I would like to move forward with the vote on this. We were able to rush through and pay them $90,000 that they may not ever render services for, but we're going to postpone the actual work. That is really a conflict for me. I think this is important. We are bound by this. I had to complete it by the deadline, and I don't agree that we postpone it.
Trustee Dygard,
I just want a clarification. Are you saying you don't want to postpone voting on this? Okay, so then maybe I need to clarify what I was saying. I wasn't saying we postpone the work. To postpone the vote. Okay. Okay, I just wanted to make sure I understood. Thank you.
any other discussions? Well, I think we sit here and we listen to people do presentations on starting points and data and where to go moving forward as a district when we evaluate students. And I think as we have hired a firm where they actually have a certified Lone Star governance tracker, someone that actually is certified to do the work, I think it's important that we allow them time to be able to look at the last evaluation tool, that the last time tracker that was done for last month's meeting, so that she may have a starting point, so that she may know what needs to be done moving forward. I think starting in the next month, tracking us today and then starting next month, while they may have been seeing our videos like many people have, I think it gives her a good starting point to be able to go back, look at the video, compare notes, and compare the tracking that has been done and has been submitted, and at the same time also be able to evaluate us as a board. Again, I trust the fact that the individual or the firm that we have hired to help us with get through this Lone Star governance and make sure that we stay within our realm is someone that actually is certified and able to evaluate the board. And I think the other plus is that she is an outside person coming in to evaluate the board. You're up next in the queue. And I think it's important, before we keep moving on, I've been keeping track of time of trustees, but I noticed that the clock hasn't been moving. So I just want us to be clear that we do need to keep track. So I see people coming in for a second round, so let's just make sure that as we move forward as a second round that we are keeping time. Yes, thank you. Trustee Santos.
Thank you, President Davila. I'd like to know how many of trustees have attended the updated LSG training. They've updated the LSG training. How many of us have completed the work in order to know where exactly we're at, especially according to the new rules surrounding the LSG training? So that just means that there's not going to be a real accurate count surrounding the knowledge around LSG.
Trustee Skeller-Jones, followed by Trustee Jones.
Legal counsel, do we have an executed contract on this? Because without an executed contract, how are they going to begin the work?
We do not yet have a signed contract. We're waiting for some last information. We're working with the district staff to satisfy. We'll be providing an opinion to the staff regarding that this is an appropriate professional service, and we still need a budget code that this will be funded out of. And as soon as we get those last pieces in place, then we anticipate an executed contract. But as we sit here today, there's not a signed contract.
And so we're postponing this to give them the opportunity to actually look at it and do the work, but we don't have a contract in place, nor do we have a decision on whether it was properly done.
We believe it was properly done. We're going to provide a written opinion to that to the district staff, and then all we need is a budget code.
So can they go ahead and begin this work without all that being in place?
They can begin preparing to do the work. I would not anticipate they would actually begin performance under the contract till you have a contract in place.
So there's not a real reason to postpone this vote? If the reason was so that they could begin to review it?
I don't have an opinion on that. I'm sorry.
Thank you. So, David, there was a quote that used to be used, and I don't remember if it was Kelly Frells that used to use it when we, I forgot for what reason it was, and he used to say, when we said, are we ready to move forward? Like, well, we have to finalize the contract, and then he would say, but the vote is what makes it, is what allows us to move forward. The contract just dictates how they're going to get paid. Is that correct? So,
well, the board has voted. There's no dispute. The board has voted to move forward and enter into a contract. The contract has been authorized by the board. The contract does more than simply define the method of payment. It does define what the expected deliverables and performance under the contract should be. So but it has been approved by the board subject to finalizing. It's ready for signature.
okay, so
It doesn't have to come back for another vote in order to be signed.
okay, so we've actually done more than what we normally do. So we've actually approved a contract, which is
You
what
have.
we don't do.
Correct.
We don't vote. So we've actually done more than what we would normally do. So,
You approved the key terms of the contract, and now we're simply getting the form of the contract finalized so it can be executed.
okay, so the work can begin.
The work can begin. I'm always going to defer to your vendor until there is, in fact, a signed contract. They are taking a certain leap of faith that there will be a signed contract.
Okay. But I just wanted to make sure, so the work can begin if the vendor has allowed.
As long as they understand where we are.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, it's Trustee Jones.
Parliamentary Inquiry.
Go ahead.
I just have a parliamentary inquiry. We, as trustees, have 3 total minutes on what we say on all agenda items. Is that accurate?
Correct.
Okay, thanks. That's all I want to
Thank
know.
you. Trustee Sung.
I'd just like to know, I want this time tracker that we vote on to be accurate, and I have some questions. There's been a change since May in how these minutes are counted, right? So according to this tracker, in June, we spent 11 minutes on the superintendent evaluation. We spent no minutes on voting. I find those things unlikely. So if this is not postponed, then what we have before us is something that I don't feel I can vouch for the accuracy of, so I'm not going to be able to support the item.
Trustee Villaseca.
So I have a couple of, first of all, I do want to celebrate in May that we did get to 33% of the time focused on student outcomes, so I know moving forward that I'd like to celebrate and to reflect on what it is that we did as a team in May so that we can continue to replicate and build on that success. I know that we're averaging out the quarterly, so you're looking month over month, 3 months for that quarter, but May was something that did stand out. And then we would have to look more deeply at June, where we did have a lot of extensive budget conversations, as everybody might recall here during that month, and other things that may have taken place in April. So I do want to take the time to recognize the board for that, and administration as well, because this is a collective effort on this front. Secondly, I do want to get an understanding who in our organization in HISD has been trained in the Lone Star Governance Framework. If we could have a better understanding too, because I know we're working towards building a collective understanding of the framework, a collective vocabulary in the framework, an understanding and deeper understanding of the goals, and I think it would be important. We raised our hands up here, those who have gone through an updated training. I know that we've all gone through training and that the community is also going through different trainings. So it would be helpful for us, especially when some of the things that are part of record and that we approve every month or every quarter is stuff that we own, the board, and also administration as well.
So before we move on, we've been joined by Trustee Dr. Lira. Trustee Jones?
To have that point of inquiry. So I didn't talk. I just want to know. I just want to be clear. So can I have my time back? Because that was the point of inquiry.
No, I don't think there wasn't any time taken away. That was
it says,
just starting. I think they just started you right now in this conversation we're having forward.
No, what I was telling you is I didn't have a question, so I want my 3 minutes.
That's exactly what I'm clarifying. So, do you have? No. Okay, got it. Any other questions in reference to this motion that has been made that we postpone this agenda item, which is B2, until next month? David?
Trustee Lira has to be.
I think he's on the screens down there. Yeah, there's screens. There's a screen down there, and I see him right here. We just, when we had 3 trustees or 2 call last time, they were just so.
I didn't see the screen down there.
I'm sorry, yeah, that's why I was wondering what the dial-up was, and it was.
Right.
All right. No further questions, no further comments. Please vote on whether to delay. Again, just for clarification, the motion was made to delay this vote until next month. And I don't know, Dr. Lira, if you were part of the conversation when we were having this. So, can you hear?
The motion?
The motion is to postpone item B2, which is the quarterly self-evaluation. There was a motion made by Trustee Sung that we delay it, seconded by Trustee Santos, that we wait until September.
Okay. I understand the motion. Okay.
So are you a thumbs up? I can't hear you, Dr. Lee. I'm sorry. I'm hearing airport noise, I think. Are you a thumbs up? Can you show me a thumbs up or a thumbs down?
He has to be audible.
I can't hear him. He can hear me.
Yeah, so we're voting now?
Yes, we are. Okay. He's a thumbs up. I just was having a hard time listening to him because I was hearing airport noise. So it's 5-4, 4 against. Motion carries. On to item D1. Trustee Skiller-Jones? Okay, please vote. It's an abstention. We need to. Thank you. D.
Please vote.
Oh, I'm sorry. We need a motion to. So moved. Thank you.
Second.
Approval to renew partnership with Avante Houston Inc. There's been an abstention, so it was pulled for Trustee Skiller-Jones. Yes, ma'am.
Once the motion is made, is there discussion?
Yes, but
You didn't ask.
well, she pulled it only because she's abstaining from voting on it.
Oh, okay.
But if you'd like to have discussion, we
No,
can.
I didn't hear that question asked, so that's all.
Oh, okay. Dr. Lita? Okay. So that's 8-4-0 against and 1 abstention. Thank you. Can you mute your computer, Dr. Lita, because we can hear the noise in the back?
I'm connected to the charging table.
Oh, okay, all right. All right, so we're just going to, all right, thank you. Next item held for discussion is I-1. Trustee Santos? Sorry, I'm waiting for this.
Thank you. It's project 190718, packet page 141, the trophies. What page? 141. Can you just help me understand why it's increasing by $400,000 per year? And
Yes.
Those are my
Yes, ma'am.
questions.
So when we originally brought you this board item was combined previously with other items, so we've made this a separate item. So when we gave you the not-to-exceed amount, we did the best that we could in terms of running spend, because we had never had it as a standalone item. So we've exceeded that amount, and that's why we're bringing it back for a budget increase.
Can you break that down just a little bit? Is that more trophies? What does that result in, the $400,000 resulting in?
So previously when we had this item, it was combined with graphic design, it was combined with printing. So there were a lot of things that combined this project. So there were multiple projects in one project. What we did is we brought you 3 separate projects. We brought you a printing services, we brought you a graphic design, and we brought you trophies and awards. And so the not-to-exceed amount that we brought you on the original item, we did the best that we could with the spend that we pulled with the combination projects to try to come up with a not-to-exceed amount. But yes, to answer your question, is we're approaching the threshold of exceeding that amount, and we're bringing it back for a budget increase.
Thank you. I just need help understanding why there are 96 employees being laid off and over $13 million worth of increases in contracts. My second question is for project 191118 on page 142, the wellness clinics. I'm afraid that this is a massive expansion already. We were rushed to a vote on this in March, and I feel this should be sent out as another bid before. This is expanding the scope of what we originally agreed. And did y'all go out for an additional bid on this?
So in the bid, are you speaking, which bid are you speaking of? The on-site clinics?
The next, yes, page 140.
Okay. So as I mentioned in agenda review, we issued a solicitation for on-site. In that solicitation, there were additional services under the scope of work section, which included, we asked for 2 additional scopes. If you could provide telemedicine, please quote. If you could provide near-site clinics, please quote. So it was a part of the on-site solicitation.
It was originally for 2 clinics, not for 11. And additionally, I just got an email from Dr. Lathan, and that's giving conflicting information from the agenda review to now. You said it would be $20 for all employees, and the email states that it's $55. Additionally, you said that it was going to be $0 for anybody making less than $25,000. And we asked, we didn't want an increase at all for our lowest paid employees. So help me to understand, why is this being done now? The previous on-site clinic contract wasn't set to expire until January. So why is this being done now and with very conflicting information?
Sure. So I don't know where you're getting your information, but let me try to explain this. We issued a solicitation for on-site clinic.
The scope of work for on-site was to quote 2 on-site clinics. In the scope of work section, there was additional services that you can provide that the district asked to be quoted on. One of those was telemedicine, one of those was near-site clinics. So that was a part of the scope of work. To answer your question in regards to statements made in the gender review, first of all, I believe the email that Dr. Lathan sent out said it was $65, not $55. That $65 fee is for employees who do not enroll in a medical plan. That is, the employees can use the on-site clinic here at Hattie Mae White. They can use the on-site clinic at Addicts for $65. The select plan employees that currently visit the 8 locations on the near site, there is no charge for select plan members. There is no charge for their enrolled dependents. With this plan expanding to the 13 locations, there is no charge for select plan employees. There is no charge for their dependents. The increase, if you will, or the added scope of work is that every employee that is enrolled in a district medical plan can now visit a near-site clinic for $20, and it does not go against their deductible.
Right. Originally, I asked you if there were any changes at all in these contracts, and you said no, but then you went back and said that there was. And so I just find it very hard to support an item that feels like it's being rushed through. It was back in March, we rushed it through, and we were backed up in a corner, and this again is, it feels like we're being backed in a corner to vote on something that I feel would not benefit our lowest paid employees. That was specific in our budget amendment that said there would be no increase to any insurance premiums for any of our employees, and I feel that that is going against the spirit. So,
Trustee Santos, I need you to I really need you to understand. There is no increase. This has nothing to do with medical insurance. This is a separate. We are not increasing. There is no added cost. The lowest paid employees are still free with this new 13 on-site clinics. There is no additional cost to
so that $20 is not an additional cost?
The $20, Trustee Santos, is for employees that make over $25,000 that are enrolled in another medical plan outside of the select plan. It's a $20 visit to the next level clinic. If you don't approve this item, then any teacher in the district, because they're not in the select plan, if they get sick and have to go to the doctor, they will then go to their primary care physician. They will then pay, if they haven't met their deductible, they will pay whatever that rate is. It could be a $70 office visit. It could be a $300 office visit until the deductible is met. So I'm not sure.
Well, then why couldn't this wait until January? Why does this have to happen now? I mean, I would love for this to be beneficial for all of our employees. Why, Dr. Lathan, does it have to happen now?
So first, I would like to read the information. The reason it's happening now, let's go back to our budget discussions. We need to, and we've heard from trustees about increasing health costs. We've heard from our employees. This is basically a free benefit, an additional benefit that we can add now for almost 33,000 people. So I want to read what was in the email. Insured employees who earn more than $25,000 annually will receive a new benefit allowing $20 visits to 13 off-site clinics. All insured employees, regardless of income, will continue to receive free visits to the on-site. That's at Addicts Middle School and right here on Hattie Mae White's property. And those earning less than $25,000, those are called select employees, would continue to receive free visits to off-site clinics as well. So they will continue to receive free visits to 13 sites. What we're doing is basically adding an additional 30,000 people that then will be required to pay a $20 copay. This is a win for all of the district employees that take the district insurance. Like I said, teachers, custodians, bus drivers, whomever takes insurance would now be able to go to an off-site clinic, one of 13 locations, and I will tell you, it's easier to borrow $20 from someone than $75 or higher.
I'm sorry, but when you have to pay $0 right now, and it's $35, there's $25,000 a year.
Trustee Santos,
I get what you're saying.
No one under $25,000 that has select plan is paying anything. If they're free with the current plan that they're on now, they're free moving to this model. I don't know how to explain that. There is no increase to the
Ms.
lowest
Okada,
level
if you're
employees.
making $26,000, trust me, $20.
I'm sorry, Trustee Santos, yes, and your time is up. The timer didn't start when you started, but in order of fairness, I started my timer on this side because I want to make sure. I know there was some discussion going on back there, but I went on ahead and started the timer, so your time is up. So any further discussion? Trustee Jones?
I'm not interfering with procurement. I'm not going to jail for nobody. This board is already in trouble with TEA for interfering with procurement.
Thank you. I need a motion now to be able to vote on Agenda I-1.
Can you move to separate each one individually?
Is that a motion to separate an agenda item?
I'd like to move to separate each item individually.
Is there a second?
Oh, I'm going to move for the trophies and for the wellness clinics, please.
2 items. So a motion is to separate, okay, the agenda item having to do with the trophies and the agenda item that has to do with, I'm sorry, I didn't hear the other one.
Page 142 and page...
On-site wellness
141.
clinics. Okay, so it's on-site wellness clinic and award trophies and promotional items is the other one. Okay, so there is a motion to separate those 2 items. There was a second by Trustee Sung. Any discussion? Otherwise, we need to vote on the separation of those items. No discussion. We are voting to separate 2 items to be voted separately from I-1, I'm sorry. Ms. Jones, Ms. Adams, Dr. Lita, we're separating item, okay. Dr. Lita is a yes also, 4. Yes, just 2. Motion carries 8-4, 1 against. All right, now we will be voting on the consent remainder items of I-1, and then we will go back and vote on the 2 separate items. Okay, so do I have a motion to approve the remainder of I-1?
Second.
Any discussion? No discussion. Please vote on the remainder balance of I-1 agenda items. Dr. Lita? Okay. Motion carries 8-4, 1 against. 8-4, 1 against. No abstentions. All right, now we will be voting on the 2 items that were separated, which is 19-0718 RFP awards, trophies, and promotional items, and on its own. Okay? Do I have a motion? So, okay, thank you. Do I have a second? Thank you. Any discussion? Okay. No discussion. Please vote on the trophy item. Oh yes, Ms. Adams.
Based on the trophy item, I heard Ms. Nakata state that we are about to exceed what we've already budgeted for. If we exceed that amount, what is our next step of best practices in making sure that we tell the basketball teams, the football teams, and everybody that cannot order trophies for their kids, for our students and for our athletes, for the teacher of the year, the teacher of the month? Just tell me that if we've already exceeded, if we're close to it. So if we're right there and we're about to cross over, how does that affect the budget?
They would not have approved vendors to purchase those items from.
Okay, thank you.
So that means, in other words, we have to stop. Once the money runs out, we'll block the vendors in the system. And no more ordering anything, and
Yes,
football
ma'am.
season is coming,
No
and
more
basketball
ordering.
season is coming. Okay, thank you. Thank you so much.
Because we're on a vote.
So I have a clarifying question then. But can campuses still purchase trophies?
No, ma'am, they won't have an approved vendor to do so.
Oh, it's the approval of the vendors. Okay.
President Davila, Trustee Skillen-Jones.
Oh, thank you. Ms. Gilla-Jones.
So this is not even, like, this is campus funds, so these are dollars that they're using from the campus.
This is not even general fund.
This is general, this is any district funds. If they choose to
But
use,
it's holistic. So the monies that the principals also use from their own budget funds are estimated in this $400,000 increase?
no, this is just district funds. So if it's
So
activity
those
funds.
are paid for by the district?
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Okay, all right, let's complete our voting. We're voting for agenda item that has been separated, which is awards, trophies, and promotional items. It's approving the vendor. Dr. Lita? Dr. Lita is against. Trustee Santos and Trustee Skiller-Jones.
Oh.
8 for, 1 against, 0 abstentions. Now move forward to the on-site wellness clinic. Do I have a motion?
That says 9-0.
Yeah, it was 1 against. I think Dr. Lita voted against it.
Oh, did he vote against?
Yes.
I put the wrong thing.
Yeah, I announced it properly, though.
Okay.
All right. The next item is the wellness clinic. I have a motion. Do I have a second? Second. Any discussion? Okay, this is to vote on the on-site wellness clinic. Please vote. Dr. Lita is a yes. Motion carries 9-4, 0 against. Okay, we are now ready to move on. Thank you. K1, Trustee Dygard.
Thank you. I just want, while we're discussing this policy, I just want to make a comment that we have not met our board constraint for the board, that we shall increase the time we spend on student outcomes from 9% in the fourth quarter of 2018 to 50% in the second quarter of 2019, maintaining 50% through the end of 2021. I would like us to consider a goal, and I mean not to vote on, I just making a comment, of striving for at least 25% for each month of the last quarter of 2019 as we begin our work with a coach, and that between now and when we do start meeting with the coach, for us to as individuals give some consideration of what we would be willing to put in here to hold us accountable if we fail to meet this goal at the end of this year. Thank you.
Trustee Sung.
I just noticed a typo. So on page 7, English learners has an R in it. So I moved to insert the R in learners.
Second.
There's been a motion to add the R, and there's been a second. We actually have to vote on it to add that into the item. So with no discussion, please vote. Yeah. Please vote on that grammar correction.
I should have said something last time.
Dr. Lita, we're voting to make a grammar change on K1. He's for. Trustee Adams And Ms. Giller-Jones? Okay, motion carries 9-4-0 against. All right, now we can go back to the discussion. Yes.
So I'm confused. I asked a previous parliamentary inquiry about, do we trustees have 3 total minutes for everything on the agenda?
Correct.
Because that's why we have agenda review, to ask all these questions.
Correct.
So I'm confused as to why every time we ask a question on a new agenda item, it starts back over at 3 minutes.
So actually, I'm not sure why it starts over, because I actually have my notes here that says how much time is remaining, and that's the reason I've also been doing it on my phone. I think the least amount we get up to talk to administration, the better they can do their work. And I have to remind, this is new, but as the clock ticks, we have 3 minutes total for all agenda items. So that, as I said, Trustee Santos has no more remaining time. So I am keeping track. I just want to make sure that those who are keeping time over there are also keeping time left, remaining. It's remaining time because we have 3 minutes total on all the agenda, throughout the whole meeting. And that's what I'm saying. So if a trustee ends up with 2 minutes and like 18 seconds, then, you start a countdown.
So again, with the parliamentary inquiry, my concern is we don't all know what you know, right? If it's up here, then everybody can see how much time they have.
And I agree.
So I would like to know, as a parliamentary inquiry, how much time does everyone have?
That I agree with you. And I actually didn't notice they were doing that until after Trustee Santos started talking, and they gave her 3 minutes. And I actually stopped her because according to the clock that was here, she still had 30 seconds. But according to my time, her time was up. And with that, I didn't start tracking it until after I noticed they were not tracking it. So the only person that I've actually tracked that has spoken is Trustee Dykart, who still has a minute left on the meeting.
So, again, this goes to the parliamentary inquiry. Whenever we finish talking, I've literally looked up at the clock to see what it had. So after Bill Secca talked, she had 1:27. After Skiller-Jones talked, she had 2:34. After Sung talked, she had 2:07. After Adams talked, she had 2:29. And after I talked, I had 2:54. So I have been. So that's what everybody has left.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I hope you share that with the staff over here, because that's what I was...
Okay, so they can take pictures just as I...
Perfect. Thank you. And that is the parliamentary procedure. All right. Okay, so we're back to K1 in reference to the agenda item K1. Any other discussions on K1? Otherwise, we are ready to vote on the item. No discussion? Please vote. Dr. Lita? We're voting on K. That's a yes. It's a 4, so 9-4-0 against. We now have K2. K2 is pulled by Ms. Villaseca.
Thank you so much. So just a quick question on this piece. I'm just curious as to why there are policy updates and a resolution from the board on something that has to do with procurement.
Yes, ma'am. So this is a policy. The current policy reads that the only way that the district that can accept solicitations from vendors is via paper copy. And so all we're asking you to do with this policy is add the word electronic so we can begin to accept electronic bids.
Thank you. Yeah, I understand that, but I'm curious because usually there isn't a resolution that comes from, did this come from admin, the resolution, on behalf of the board to go with the policy that's coming? So I'm just a little confused because I'm not used to seeing that when we're going through our materials.
It's the process that it's been utilized before when there's been a policy change, from my understanding, for this item.
For this particular item?
Yes, for this
So
particular
it's a
item.
policy change and there's a resolution from the board that goes together?
Yes, because you had to add the word electronic. If you look on packet page 199.
Okay. Was there a the last time that the board passed something like this, was there a resolution before? Is that why this was adopted?
I believe so, yes. That's our understanding. Normally when we put information in, staff will go back and look at a previous item to see what the previous documents required. Is there a concern with the item or?
No concern. I was just curious because I'm not used to seeing a policy change coming from admin on or on a procurement side, but admin in general with a board resolution to go together. That's all. I'm not used to seeing that, and I want to know if that's common practice, if we should be doing it more, if we should be talking about that. That's all. Okay. David, do you have any concerns? No. Okay. Thank you. That's all. Okay.
Any further discussions on K2? There being none, please vote. Revision to board policy. Dr. Lita's a yes. Oh, I need a vote. Trustee Adams. Motion carries 9-4-0 against. Now we will move on to K3. Approval of proposed revision to board policy on personnel management relations, first reading. And this was pulled by Ms. Villaseca. Yes. Did you pull it? Oh, Trustee Skiller-Jones?
Both of them did.
You both did. So let's start with you then.
I just wanted to know
The process for preserving the integrity of the vote. How will this be voted on? How will the votes be counted? How do we preserve the process for the integrity of the vote?
Sorry. I'm going to, well, you ran out of time, but the question actually goes to our policy chairperson, that would be Trustee Santos. Oh, okay. You're right. So the floor is yours, Trustee Santos, because it's Trustee Skiller-Jones' time.
what is the process of the vote? How will we protect the integrity of the vote? Who specifically council votes?
Does, the whole process. And then I saw something about mail-in votes. Is that, so will they be mail-in votes, and will it be identifiable so people can't mail in multiple votes? How does that work?
Well, first of all, this was brought to the board back in October of 2018, and there's been discussion surrounding this agenda item, and it's still a work in progress with mailing it in, either having employees come into Hattie Mae White somewhere where they can physically turn in the ballots, and so that's something that is being worked on right now. And just remind my colleagues that this is first reading, so.
And so the regulations will be done by whom? Because this is the policy, but the regulations will spell out all of that. Who's doing that? Who's doing the regulations?
And did we discuss that during the policy committee?
So, let's specify that there's going to be enforcers. The district runs the process, so the district has to come up with the regulations.
Okay.
Page 5.
Yeah, I've got it. So if we look at page 5 of 6 on packet page 209, it is the district the district shall prepare a list, a ballot of all eligible employee organizations desiring to be the elected representative of the employees of the employee group in either instructional or non-instructional coordinator. So it's going to be either mail-out ballots, and just depending on how This list shall include employees' names, job title, work site, email address, and home address. Ballot shall be returned to the independent auditors employed by the district or other independent third-party postmark no later than midnight, November 15th. So,
Okay. And the second part to that question, if it's the district's responsibility, is there a line item for cost allocations for the cost of the election? Who pays for it?
I cannot speak to the line item yet, so no, I would have to go back and review that.
Thank you.
Trustee Dygard, followed by Trustee Jones.
The first I saw this was just the edited copy at agenda review, and this didn't come through the policy committee while I was on the policy committee, and I'm really hesitant without understanding the history behind this, without understanding the ramifications of it, to give it my support tonight, and I hope that we can have further discussion about it before second reading. It is, and I just want to point out, I love the process for the board members to be able to ask questions of administrative agenda items in advance and have this Q&A document that is publicly available. But I find in situations like this, 3 minutes cumulatively for an entire meeting for a board member for all agenda items, there's no other process by which we get to discuss things that board members put on an agenda. And so I think that's something we should be considering moving forward so that we can have more robust conversations about these things that board members put on the agenda. But for tonight, I'm not going to support this because I don't feel like I understand it well enough to give it my support. Thank you.
Trustee Villaseca.
So my request would be that we do have, before the second reading, a copy or some background context information on how we got from the policy that was, I think the date was 2013 to now. So why the evolution, and then what the benefits are to these changes, and then a timeline as to when the portion, the administrative response, what is that kind of policy called? The consultation? Is that right? Hold on. Well, anyway, if we could just have a timeline for next time.
Oh, Trustee Jones.
So this didn't go through the normal process. That concerns me. I've taken time to speak to representatives of the 3 unions out there before this. I'm going to go forward, but I expect some changes to be made. I've already talked to you guys. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you, Trustee Jones. There is also a concern that Dr. Lathan is sharing with me that administration has not had a chance to respond. I do hope moving forward that we at least administration get an opportunity to be able to respond at the next policy committee, which I'm hoping is before our next board meeting, so that we may be able to do some edits for ready for second reading and approval.
It'll be done before our next board.
Okay, thank you so much. Please vote on the first reading, on the consultation for personnel management relations, first reading. Dr. Lida's a go, okay. 8 for, 1 against. Okay, that concludes all the items that have been pulled. We are now ready to move to consider the balance of today's agenda. Do I have a motion to accept the balance of today's agenda by consensus?
So moved.
Second? Please vote to approve the... Thank you. That's a 4. Dr. Lita? 9-4, 0 against. Thank you so much. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the special meeting held on June 27, 2019, and the agenda review held on August 14, 2019? Is there a second, or is there? Thank you. Any discussion? No discussion, please vote to approve minutes. Dr. Lita is a 4 also. Trustee Skiller-Jones? Motion carries 9-4, 0 against, 0 abstention. We are now ready to consider items discussed in executive session. Are there any motions?
Yes. Motion 1. I have a motion. I move that the board approve settlement authority in Hoshishak HISD 55th District Court, cause number 2017-53894, as discussed in closed session with legal counsel effective August 8, 2019.
Is there a second?
Second.
Please vote. Dr. Lita, I'm assuming you're going to abstain from this. This was closed session. Thank you. Abstention, 6-4, 3 abstentions. Is there another motion?
I move that the board approve the settlement and release agreement concerning Daniel F., George F., and Mabel F. and HISD as discussed in closed session with legal counsel effective August 8, 2019.
Is there a second?
Second.
Please vote. Thank you. 7-4, 2 abstention. Is there any motion?
I move that the board approve the final orders for personnel and separation and release agreements for personnel as discussed in closed session effective August 8, 2019.
Is there a second? Please vote. 7-4, 2 abstentions.
I move that the board approve the resignation and release agreement for the Chief of Governmental Relations Officer as discussed in closed session effective August 8, 2019.
Please vote.
Need a second?
Oh, I'm sorry. I need a second.
Second.
Second. Please vote. Six, 4, 3 abstention. Any other motions?
I move that the board find that good cause does not exist as required by the Texas Education Code, sections 21.105, 21.160, or 21.210 for resignation or abandonment of contract as discussed in closed session effective August 8, 2019.
Is there a second? Thank you. Please vote. 7-4, 2 abstentions.
I move that the board approve of a portion of the acreage at 0 Allison Road adjacent to Frost Elementary School as surplus and authorized sales procedures as discussed in closed session effective August 8, 2019.
Second. Thank you. Please vote. 7-4, 8-4, 1 abstention.
I move that the board declare a portion of the North Forest acreage adjacent to North Forest High School as surplus and authorized sales procedures effective August 8, 2019.
Second. Please vote. 8-4, 1 abstention.
I move that the board approve legal counsel requesting an extension of time to respond to the TEA draft investigation report and take other actions as discussed in closed session effective August 8, 2019.
Do I have a second? Please vote. Trustee Adams. 5-4, 3 against, and 1 abstention. Any other?
That concludes the motions discussed in closed session.
Thank you. We have now come to the portion of our meeting where we hear from the public. We are glad you are here and look forward to hearing your views. Only those who registered by 9:30 a.m. today may speak this evening. Copies of handout materials must have been provided to the board services by 9:30 a.m. today. We have 13 speakers registered this evening. The total time allotment of hearing of the community shall not exceed 30 minutes. Speakers during the hearing of the community shall be limited to 2 minutes each. I'd like to remind speakers that when addressing the board, please stay on topic and refrain from naming individuals, especially students, as they are protected under the Family Education Rights and Privacy Act. However, naming your own child is permissible in the course of stating your concerns. Please understand that this public forum does not allow for dialogue with board members. The board cannot deliberate or respond directly to a speaker in this format. So that each person who has signed up to speak can be heard by the board, we ask that there be no disruption of the meeting by members of the audience. No abusive statements or action, no threats or confrontations, no audible expressions by the audience approval or disapproval. Should a speaker drift from the stated subject or become disruptive or abusive, the speaker shall be given one warning. If a second warning is required, then the speaker shall forfeit the remaining time allotment for the current meeting, any allotment for any meeting within the next 30 days, and may be removed from the meeting. We ask that you please speak directly into the microphone. The clock on the wall to your right and on the podium will count down your time or will signal when your time is up. I ask that you please respect the procedures and the other speakers and end your remarks promptly when your time has expired. Will Christy Nguyen please come to the podium? Also, will the following three people that I call in order come and sit in the front? We have some seats at Speaker 1, Speaker 2, and Speaker 3 so that we may be able to have people come up as they're called. Ms. Rita Thomas, Sam Smith, and Sister Mama Sonia. You may begin when you're ready. Please start with your name.
Christine Nugent.
Thank you.
I'm speaking tonight regarding the hiring of Jeffrey A. Baer to teach at Eastwood Academy for the 2019-2020 school year. I was made aware of his hateful tweets by my son, who is an Eastwood Academy student. He stated things like, "build the wall," with exclamation points, and repeated it several times. He also tweeted directly to the president, "Why, Mr. President, why would you let them win and destroy our great country? I voted for you to build the wall. Never surrender. I'm definitely disappointed in you." Freedom of speech? No. Have we not learned from the recent mass shootings? Rhetoric like this dehumanizes and separates us with hate. Eastwood Academy is a neighborhood internal charter school with a majority of Latino students. Our school is nationally recognized for academic achievements, but more important to me is a strong sense of family present at this school. The outcry was swift, and after discovering the teacher recently hired was not just a Trump supporter who ran on the platform of hate toward Latinos, but someone who is demanding over and over, build the wall, was palpable. We had over 300 signatures on a petition to not hire this man within days. We agreed to meet with this man to try to see if we could come to some kind of common ground. Several former students came to share their stories of struggle as undocumented students and the constant fear they live with daily. This meeting went very badly, not because of the former students, but because this man could show no empathy and for these students and what that statement, "build the wall," means to them. He was incredibly immature, defensive, and angry. In fact, at one point, my son had to stand up and defend me as he erupted and attacked me. After we tried to explain to him why there was such an uproar of emotion over his tweet, he said, "Texas is a red state. If these students can't handle this, then they should just leave." I was concerned about this man before the meeting, but now I'm terrified of this man being in the classroom with these students. The former students were kind, eloquent, and showed this man much more respect than he deserved or showed them. This is not about freedom of speech. There are other conservative teachers at Eastwood Academy who are loved and respected because they empathize with the students and have never spoken the words, "build the wall." Mr. A. Baer showed absolutely no understanding or willingness to empathize with the plight of undocumented students. He is not
Thank you. I will remind the speakers that we refrain from naming individuals as much as we possibly can. Ms. Thomas.
Good afternoon. On last month, when we was getting ready to do for the pay raise, yes, I was frustrated, and I feel like that our people has been slapped upside the head. I was told that I called Dr. Lathan out of her name. Okay. And she indicated to me that she would not talk to me until I come down here and apologize to her. But let me tell you, let me read this right here. This is coming from one of her chiefs. Rita think that she got a big celebration out of trash and Grenada, but the blood would be on her people's hands. She's getting a raise because her younger due percent will basically go up. Teachers didn't get SHIT out of the deal because the insurance has already been bidded out. This is one of the reasons why we trying to make sure that we get a voice for our support personnel, because we have to go through all kind of channels just to let somebody hear our voice, you know. So, and I got some stuff here that I like to share with you, Dr. Latham, you know, and all we want to do is be treated right, treated fair, just as the teachers' organizations and the administration. We are peoples too. We need to feed our family. Our family need to pay their light bill, and we are sick and tired of slave wages and harassment. I have got calls from my peoples out in the field saying that they have been tolerated after we got this raid. If this kind of stuff is happening, Dr. Latham, I know that you don't know anything about it, but if it's happening, you need to stop that tolerating against my members. Is that good enough?
Thank you, Ms. Thomas. Next we have Mr. Sam Smith, followed by Sister Mama Sonia, followed by Dr. Pamela Boulevard. I'm sorry. Again, I ask that you refrain from naming individuals.
It's a sad day for the students of HRZ. Our community voice is variable. By your action, you put our voice and democratic process in jeopardy. All I can say, this is a mess, and all I can say, goodbye.
Sister Mama Sonia, followed by Dr. Pamela Boulevard, followed by Zeph Topo.
Misuse us, abuse us, turn against us. Do y'all really care about us? Welcome back. It is 2019 to 2020, a brand new school year. And I trust and I pray that there will be no more infighting. There will be no more backbiting. Now, you can disagree with one another, but please do it with civility. It looks bad when you all are constantly fighting, and we should be here for one thing and one thing only, and that is to improve the educational lives of our children. So I'm hoping that this year, you know, with the elephant in the room, the looming of TEA coming taking over, and as much as I come down and against y'all, I do not want TEA to come in and get in our stuff, because I think we can do it ourselves. But you got to prove it, and you've got to show what you can do. And last but not least, let's talk about the Delmar Stadium. I'm going to say it over and over. Our children should not have to play under the banner of a racist, white, supremacist ex-school board member. He said that the NAACP should be called the National Association for the Agitation of Colored People. He said that the reason that people went down to wine gardens, they just trying to start something. Our children should not have to play under that banner. Please do something. Love us, treat us right, respect us. I hope you really care about us.
Dr. Pamela.
I hate having to follow her. Hello. This is the start of a new school year, as Sister Mama Sonia said, and we are all here. And you believe it or not, as much as I come up here and as much as I discuss things, we are in support of this board. But we need you all to do the things that need to be done to keep TEA at bay, because this really isn't about y'all. They don't want to take over TEA. The TEA doesn't want to take this board over because y'all done something wrong. They just want to do it because this is probably the most diverse board in the history of this country. Yeah. That's why they want to take over this board. Has nothing to do with y'all fighting or not fighting or any of that. This is not about that. This is about the propagation of racial supremacy. And you need to be very careful, and you need to go get along. Just out here, that's good enough for us. I don't care if you don't like each other. I don't care if you don't like me. But this board is the best board. It could be the best board we've ever had. But we need y'all to work together. Because you don't disagree about enough stuff, and the little piddly stuff y'all fuss about is really kind of silly sometimes. So no more walking quorums, no more influencing vendors, just whatever you were doing, stop it. Just stop it. Because we need you to stay here. We need this board. And we can make some real progress. With Dr. Latham and this board, we can do it. So I'm asking you, please, school year 19 to 20, let's do this. And let's kick teeth.
Zip Copper, followed by Andy Dewey, followed by Jackie Anderson.
Thank you, Madam President, board members, and Madam Superintendent. First and foremost, let me say, in our community, we may fight, we may tumble, we may not always agree, but I stand in solidarity with the first two speakers, the last two speakers, that we will solve our issues together. I believe in this community, and I would certainly stand by this community before anyone else from the outside. I'm here to talk about K-3 today. First and foremost, the idea that much of the language hasn't come to the administration. Now, we know that's not true. We've been talking about that. We went through this with Richard Carranza. We started following up with Dr. Latham. The latest meeting was with the HR director and the legal general counsel, where we started having some of these conversations where they received part of the paperwork. It may not necessarily be in the exact same form, but we went to the point where we had to reduce it down to the most simplest piece to try to even get movement forward. Why that's important, if you looked at the latest PDK study, besides money, besides pay, the main other reason that teachers are leaving the profession is voice. Lack of respect in community. We need to have a voice. By being able to change these procedures so that we can have an election where they can choose their decision, then we can bring forward an elementary, middle, high school teacher, a special education teacher, an ancillary teacher that can then take on that role of leading that consultation team and have that direct voice with the administration. That's the way that we're going to start keeping people, is when they feel like they can directly impact their profession and make those changes. That's what's important. I want to be able to take a back seat so that we can put them up front. Right now, we're restricted to 3 seats. Under the current policy, if we got the votes going through, we could probably have 20 or 30 people there. But it makes more sense and it's more efficient. Let people choose. Let the employees choose so that we can make sure that we get the right people to the table. Thank you.
Mr. Andy Dewey, followed by Jackie Anderson, followed by Tara Webb.
Thanks for moving K3 forward, by the way. I've been representing HFT in consultation, having one of those seats since many of you were still in school. Most of you were still in school. All right? It's been a while. I've got a lot of experience. I've got a lot of history of how consultation works. If I was to sum it up in really one word over the time, it's inefficient. It's an inefficient process. It's inefficient because of multiple voices at the table, often represent different interests and have different agendas. It's inefficient because, depending on the administration sometimes is very, very helpful. They listen. Other times, they just kind of give us lip service and say, thank you for your input. Sometimes the administrations have tried to divide the employee groups in order so we don't get consensus. All of those strategies, the inefficiency leads to inaction. Getting feedback from unified frontline teachers and staff can only improve policy creation and implementation, not harm it. Having one elected employee organization ensures the most efficient process of gathering employee input to help the superintendent and school board make the best decisions to improve student achievement and outcomes. In short, this policy will allow for greater collaboration and will improve trust between administration and employees. But most of all, it will lead to policies that will improve student achievement. How do we improve our children's reading skills? You start by working with the employees who work each day with those students. And so this will be a positive outcome for everybody involved in this district. Unified, one voice. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Jackie Anderson, Tara Webb, followed by Daniel Santos.
Good evening. I'm Jackie Anderson, a 33-year educator in HISD, beginning to run together now.
I stand here today to speak in support to amend the HISD consultation policy so employees may vote for a single elective consultation organization. Passing this consultation policy is about improving student achievement and fighting for our students that are often left behind. I am committed to advocating for all students. Together with other teachers, paraprofessionals, and support staff, we are all working to make sure that there is equity for all. I encourage the board's continued support to the consultation policy proposal at the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Tara Webb. Mr. Daniel Santos, followed by Kenethia Rhodes and Tevin English.
Thank you. Good evening. I am Daniel Santos, 13-year teacher veteran, 2-time Teacher of the Year, and I applaud today your support of the proposed revisions to consultation policy, item K3, that will maximize collaboration in the district and honor the principle of local control. As one of 3 HFT teachers who participated in last year's teacher appraisal work group and as an advocate for community schools, I have witnessed the positive outcomes when we work together with administration to support our children's needs. In fact, when I had the privilege of meeting Vice President Joe Biden in May, I even shared that collaboration between you all, administration, and the teachers in our community. Unlike the TEA's efforts to suppress and extinguish community voice, especially in communities of color, the revised consultation policy actually respects the democratic process and guarantees the kind of collaboration that will retain the best teachers and support personnel. And I am one of thousands in the community who are demanding the right to choose. For a better, stronger, collaborative environment, we ask all of you to continue to uphold the fundamental democratic principle, one person, one vote. And since today is my birthday, thank you for that gift of voting, supporting. So, thank you.
Happy birthday. Happy birthday, Mr. Santos. Ms. Kenethia Rhodes, followed by Tevin English, followed by Lucia Moreno.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Tevin English, and I'm here in support of the proposal to amend the HISD consultation policy so that employees can elect a consultation organization. I'm standing with my union brothers and sisters in support of improving this policy. Houston needs strong schools, and we think a piece of that is allowing its employees to have a voice in selecting who represents them, an organization that represents them in that consultation policy. We believe that if it's the right of the city firefighters, Houston's police department, and other city workers, it should be the right of our hardworking teachers and support staff. We shouldn't be afraid of their voices, and I encourage the board to continue to pass through this policy and support the teachers and their democratic right. Thank you.
Ms. Moreno.
Good evening. First of all, I'd like to say that I'm very proud of this school board. This is one that my students very much and dearly love, and they enjoy coming up here. I'd hate to see anything happen, and I want you guys to know that we are behind you, because it is the first time that anyone has listened to what the teachers and the students really need. Saying that, I am here to support the consultation policy as proposed, but I'm going to explain why. It is important to have representation on excessive paperwork for teachers. Color-coordinated TEKs and objectives, even if you're colorblind. On lesson planning for lesson planning. We have lesson planning so that we can do our lesson plans. Pull-outs for help only for English students, speaking and not pulling out bilingual students. That was a question that you guys had last week. Data over data over data. The loss of excessive paperwork was broken many times over last school year, and the teachers will continue to leave if you guys don't speak up for us. we need your help because teachers go home. They're overworked. They're tired. They go home crying. How do you expect them to come back and deal with what they have the next day? And I know some of you that have been teachers here understand. And yes, the bilingual students are not getting the same representation as the English speaking. I don't care what they stand up here and tell you. I work in a school. I'm there every day. And I can tell you that our bilingual students are not pulled out. And that's some of the things that the teachers wanted me to let you guys know. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes our...
Joshua was supposed to speak. He was signed up to speak.
I was signed up as a student, but I'm not a student.
Oh, that's right. Okay. Yes, you were on my other list. You may come up.
I am a 2015 Eastwood Academy alum, and I'm actually coming back to the East End to teach as a high school teacher. I was part of the group that met with Jeffrey Hebert, the one who tweeted, "Build the wall. Why would you come to, or why do you let them come into our country and destroy our great country? Why do you let them win?" We met with him, and he was believing that he did nothing wrong, saying things like, "I never use this language in the community." He played the victim by immediately sitting down and starting off with, "My last 2 weeks have been really tough." Being completely unempathetic with the students, saying in response to their stories, "Yeah, I've been called names too." And having a short temper, yelling at some of the people in the group. For example, to my own mom, when she shook her head at the "I've been called names too," getting up and yelling, "You know what, lady?" Eastwood Academy is already one of the best schools we have in HISD. Top scoring, an amazing culture, returning students, many families, brothers and sisters that go to that school, including my own. It's world recognized. I went to Duke University where the name Eastwood Academy is known. That was not the case 10 years ago. It is now. This is not an attack on free speech. We have many openly liberal and conservative teachers at our school, and this has never been a problem before, not even close. One of our undocumented students that came to talk with this teacher said that it's really hard to live every day as an undocumented student. "I don't feel safe. We all don't feel safe." And as every teacher knows, if a student does not feel safe, a student does not learn. And if a student does not learn, then the teacher is not teaching. So let's do right by our students and ensure that everybody has a safe environment in which they can learn. And this teacher is not going to provide.
Thank you. That concludes our hearing of citizens. Dr. Layton, do you have any reports or any other? No. Next, we will move on to comments from trustees. Yeah, comments from board members. All right. I think some board members may be out of time to make comments. Is that correct? Yeah, it's 3 minutes total for the entire board meeting. So starting with Ms. Skiller-Jones, I'm going to have to yield to administration and go back to find out how much time she has still remaining. That's all I need. You can't do 30 seconds? You could. Yeah, but even if you can't, if you just put it on your iPhone, it'll just ring.
I just want to hope everyone had a wonderful summer.
Thank you.
And welcome everyone back and looking forward to an amazing, amazing school year. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Sung, how much time, before you get started, just clarification on how much time is left. 2 minutes?
I hope everybody had a good summer. I'm looking forward to the new school year. One thing I'm really excited about is that next board, once we get our contract figured out, we'll be working with the board to engage the community in reviewing our goals. So the goals are posted here. We just added the fourth one tonight. That's really our North Star in HISD. That is what we are focused on. That's what this board and our superintendent, this team of 10, are pulling for. And they're not perfect, right? And so we need our employees, we need our parents, we need our community members, we need your voice to talk about what's working with them, where there are gaps, what we can do better. So I'm really excited that we're going to be engaging in this process over the next few months, and hope that, you know, those of you who are here at this board meeting, because you care about this district, you care about our students, right, participate in that process. Thank you. Looking forward to working with all of you on this.
Thank you, Trustee Villaseca. And do we know how much time she has? I'm sorry, 26 seconds?
Okay. Thank you. Legislative Budget Board update. From my understanding, there is a draft of 5 chapters that was reviewed by administration in late July. On August 22nd from 8 to 6 p.m. Is the second round of chapters that will be reviewed, and a final report is expected to be around 500 pages and released in September.
Wow. Thank you. Trustee Jones, I'm assuming you know how much time you have left. Could you let the administration know so they can set the time?
2:48.
Thank you. If you can't put it on the watch, like I said, you could always put it on your iPhone, and so when you hear it go off, you'll know. No, but, I'm sorry, just a cell phone, yeah. You got you're saying, okay, we're going to wait till you set yours. All right.
So I'm going to begin. So I am not going to play pretend. It's a new school year. I'm going into my 4th year on the board, and we always come up here and pretend like everything is okay, say stuff, and then behind closed doors, nothing is what it seems up here. There's not a team of 10. I saw that today. I'm not going to waste my time with people who disenfranchise my constituents. So when I don't know what's going to be put on the board agenda before it gets put on, and what myself, Trustee Skillen-Jones, Trustee Adams, and Trustee Dygard ask for things to be voted on, we're always voted down. So I'm not playing pretend, because if you're on my team, you're on my team. And until this board works with the superintendent and doesn't kick her out of meetings that she should be in, because we're supposed to be a team of 10, I'm standing with my superintendent. Newsflash, race should not matter. It shouldn't. The Constitution says it shouldn't matter. But newsflash, I happen to be a black woman, and Dr. Layden has been discriminated against and targeted since April of last year. And so if and when I see her treated with the dignity and respect and that she's earned, not because she's black, but because she's brilliant, I'm not going to any meetings. Dr. Layton is supposed to be in meetings with whoever these people are that are supposed to be helping us. And quite frankly, I don't trust them. I don't think taxpayers should spend money to defend trustees who walk in quorum. I do not believe it. I've known about it for a long time. So much so because everyone was confused about what happened with Dr. Layton when she got fired wrongfully back in October of last year, that I started doing As the Board Turns. Because this is a soap opera up here, and people need to figure out what's going on. So I'm not going to play pretend. Before we came here, full duggery was going on. And so, since 4 areas literally have no representation, although I'm not a supporter of TEA, but I can tell you this, and I never thought the day would come when I would say this, but TEA at least will consider student achievement when 4 of us are totally disenfranchised. I said it, I meant it, I didn't stutter. Truth is an absolute defense to libel, slander, and defamation. So we come up here, the 4 of us, to figure out what their play is at every board meeting. With the consultation, no one bothered to talk to me because they don't talk to us. And I'm done.
Trustee Dygard, do we know how much time Trustee Dygard has? 48 seconds.
I want to just paraphrase some things I heard from some speakers, or at least from one speaker, that the board is here for one reason only, to improve the education of children, and that we need to show what we can do. And so I just want to thank, if that speaker is still here, thank her for her comments. I have been finding it problematic for quite some time that in the year and a half I've been on the board, I don't feel we have actually demonstrated to the public, let alone to our students, a commitment to improving the outcomes of our kids. And I totally support us trying to get along, but just getting along and looking good for the public and TEA is not enough for me. And our kids do not get a do-over. And every day that is lost for them, they don't get back for their education. And when I look at the data that we have on how our kids are doing, that is a reflection of this board's work. It is that we need to own the responsibility. We need to stop making excuses. And I look forward to working with everybody with the coach. Thank you.
Trustee Adams, 2 minutes and 25 seconds.
Thank you so much. I just want to say to the Madison feeder pattern schools, your Madison takeover will take place, of course, on August 17th. The Worthing feeder pattern back-to-school bash will take place on August 17th for school supplies and all the returning information to get ready for school. And, of course, I want to say thank you to all the educators who have worked really hard this summer to get your classes ready, to get your schools ready, to get everything ready for the students will have an opportunity and just a success story when they get ready to return back. And I just want to say to all the District 9 principals, thank you so much for working hard. Again, a second year. Thank you for all that you've done to contribute to our students in the District 9 community. Of course, the HISD back to school event is going to take place on August 23rd at Delmar Stadium. And I look forward to the press conference on next Thursday, which I'm really excited about. My alumnus, Cashmere High School, on next week, to Principal Bush and all the wonderful staff for doing an amazing job. I am so proud of you, especially to all the parents and the students for working really, really hard. History is going to be made next week. I am just elated. Thank you, Trustee Jones, for your love and support for that community as we continue to move the community forward. And also one thing I just want to say, one thing I know about God, that He is a big giver. And He loves us all. And so as we can just come together on one accord, in spite of whatever differences that beset us, we have to always remember the one common denominator that we're working hard for, and that's for our students. And to the administrative staff, thank you all so much for working so hard this summer, for making sure that all the information was provided to a timely manner, budgets and everything. And I look forward, prayerfully, whatever the Lord says, that we will be here. And if it's not His will, then we'll still be here because we'll be able to fight from the other side. So thank again to all you. Thank you, Dr. Latham, for your leadership, for moving this district forward. And I look forward to a successful year of what we continue to do is move HISD to a better place. Thank you.
How much time? How much time do I have left? 2 minutes and 33 seconds. Anybody who knows me knows I don't use that much time. I do want to welcome everybody back for the 2019-2020 school year, and wishing everybody a great academic school year. But I do want to quote some of the people that came up here to talk at the end. And one of the things that was said is democratic right. Don't be afraid of our voices. No one should ever take away the city of Houston's democratic right. No one should ever be afraid to hear the voices of the people that are up here. We disagree, and we disagree with passion. But the citizens of Houston should not be punished by taking away their democratic right to be able to elect or unelect those that they feel do not feel the mold or support what's best in the best interest of students. I disagree. I think we voted together more than not. If people would go back and do the homework and look at how many times we've actually voted unanimously on items, I think some of us up here would be surprised. We've actually voted more consistently together than against each other. And that is because we still all agree on the common goal, and that's student outcomes and student achievement. And it's unfortunate that no one seems to be paying attention to that. So I asked everyone again, and I quote people that were here tonight: democratic right, and do not be afraid of our voices. And everyone should have the democratic right to be able to vote who they want, and don't allow anyone to take it away, because especially as people of color, we worked really darn hard, and a lot of people sacrificed their life to give it to us. And with that, this meeting is concluded at 7:31.